Connecting on. This is Paul Schneiderman today on the 25th edition of Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio. Today we have a very special guest on this live edition of Sports and Stuff. We have the elected King County Executive Dow Constantine. I'm privileged to have the producer and engineer Daniel Billis here and the station manager, director Tony Benton. Dow, I'm going to give a little introduction of you for the listeners. Dow was born and raised in the West Seattle neighborhood, 1980 graduate of West Seattle High School.
You had to say the year, didn't you?
Absolutely, Dow. We're not that far apart in age. Dow is a graduate University of Washington. It's law school. A little nugget here. Dow, while attending UW Law School, worked as a DJ on the college radio station, KCMU. Are you going to take over my show one day, Dow?
That is a fact. It will not be apparent during our interview, however, that I have a radio background.
Yeah, you do. I saw that. Dow's very much a Seattle, King County guy. There's got to be some Seattle, King County tattoo on your forehead somewhere, Dow. I'm telling you, you're very much a Seattle, King County guy. Dow worked as a practicing attorney. Dow was a member of the Washington State House of Representatives. Dow worked as a Washington State Senator. Dow was appointed to the King County Council in 2002. Since 2009, he's been the elected King County Executive. He's been doing this for almost a decade now, by the way.
It seems like it.
I know it. Dow's married to Shirley Carlson, father of Sabrina. Dow, are you the grandnephew of the Husky legend George Wilson?
I am indeed. My grandfather's kid brother. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Well, here's a little connection, Dow. I believe my late grandfather, Harry Schneiderman, who lettered 1928, knew your late uncle.
They would have known each other. Yeah, he was. George was the first really big sports star,
no doubt,
in town.
So I think our descendants have a little tie there. So anyhow, Dow, today we're going to learn more about your career, your work as a King County executive. We're going to have a little special focus on regional sports issues. We're certainly not going to get into everything today. We only have 27 minutes. But Dow, thanks for coming on Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming here, Dow. By the way, you've always been known more by your first name. Has it always been like that?
Well, funny, it's not my first name. It's my middle name.
That's right. That's
my
right.
First name is James, but Dow's my middle name, and it's a family name, but at some point it just kind of stuck before I had any say about it. So good news is it fits well on yard signs. So
very true.
It was prescient on the part of my folks to just give me an odd name that everybody could remember.
People just don't refer to you as Constantine much. You've always been more.
Yeah, it is interesting. It was very hard to acquire a nickname on account of I already had one.
Right.
You know.
Real quickly, Dow, again, we're going to hit on a whole bunch of subjects today. How did you get the bug going to politics in the first place?
Yeah, it's really interesting. People ask that a lot, and it was just a kind of long-term interest in news and current events. I was becoming aware of the world in the late 60s, watching TV news. There was a lot going on, and that and some very specific local environmental battles over places that I loved and cared about drew me into this, and away from my actual career of practicing law. Eventually, I could have been like many of my classmates, comfortably semi-retired at this point, but I chose a different path.
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of lawyers are going to be working the day they die. Dow, I appreciate that background. Now, we lost two of your King County executive predecessors this year. John Spellman, who later became governor, was known as the King County of King County modern government. We also lost Rainier Ravel this year, who served in the 1980s. Can you share with us a little about each of the gentlemen who passed, two of your predecessors?
Yeah. John Spellman was the first executive under the charter, so we were given the right under state law to create our own charter and kind of a constitution. And we created a real government with a separately elected executive and legislative branch. John Spellman went from being a commissioner to being elected executive, and he served for 3 terms. And he was the guy who kind of laid the foundation, and I sort of compared him to George Washington for our little region. Established what the relationship between the council and executive would be, how we would do business, and then went on, of course, to the governorship. And he was just a real decent fellow. I have
nice guy.
I have his first State of the County address typed on like an IBM Selectric, I think, and one of his pipes. He had like a trademark kind of corncob pipe on my desk, and I keep it there just to remind me where we've been. It's not such a long history, but we're coming up now on 50 years of charter government in King County. He passed away quite a few months ago now, and of course his family are big Husky fans, by the way, and so I see them a lot at Husky games, Husky events. Randy Ravel was the second elected executive of King County. He led a lot of innovations in open space preservation, protecting things we all care about, and also because he had his own challenges with mental health, about which he was very open. He led the way on destigmatizing mental health challenges and improving our response for people who are struggling with mental health challenges, as well as physical health. He worked on with the Hospital Association statewide. So both big losses for our county, but also people for whom we can be very grateful. They've made great contributions from both sides of the aisle.
Both leave major legacies. Well, Dow, you're the King County executive of the county. I think it's the 13th largest county in the country.
It is.
2.1 million people.
And now we're closing in on 2.2 any day now.
Gosh. Yeah. Real quickly, Dow, what's been keeping you busy in recent weeks?
It's always a lot because we have 14,000 employees, so there's always tons going on. I was just in discussing our labor negotiations with a group of my employees. But the really big things are clearly what you see before you, homelessness. And my work, as is often the case, is trying to bring everyone together around a shared plan, all of the cities, as well as the business community, philanthropies, and others, so that we can take that sort of collective impact approach that delivers change on big issues, as we did with creating the light rail system. But also really focused in on our very difficult work of driving toward zero detention of youth, of keeping kids out of the justice system, of diverting them to alternatives. When they've committed very violent crimes, what can we do to help them restore their lives and also prevent that next kid from going down the same path? And we've got a whole team of folks who are working on our plan for zero youth detention, even as we work to build a detention facility that's much, much smaller and much more therapeutic than what we're able to offer right now.
This is Paul Schneiderman, host of Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio with King County Executive Dow Constantine. Actually, Dow, speaking of the youth jail issue, we're going to move to sports in a minute or two. That's the main focus of the show. Several listeners on Rainier Avenue Radio had several emails about the youth jail issue. Anything else you want to add on? It's a controversial plan. Anything else you want to add on it? Real quickly?
I mean, despite the impatience of those who see an ideal state to which we need to move, toward which we need to move, we still have kids who are committing crimes, and so we have to be able to deal with those responsibly. And that's responsibly to the kids in terms of providing an environment in which we can help them begin to turn their lives around, but also to the community, because we need to protect people from harm. We are, I think, more than any other jurisdiction, working toward that day when we will not have to have a detention center for people under the age of 18. We've reduced the numbers from nearly 200 on average to about 35 youth charged as youth today. There are about 15 kids charged as adults who've committed the most serious crimes. So as we do that, disproportionality has gone up, as it does in every jurisdiction that undertakes this kind of work, and that's the real vexing problem. How do we wring the biases out of all of the systems, not just within the justice system, but in society, the health system, the education system, the economic system, that cause black and brown kids to be disproportionately represented in the justice system? Those are hard questions. These are not solved with simple slogans or simple assertions that we should have no youth detention. These are solved with us undertaking difficult transformative work with the community, and we have a lot of community partners, and we are doing that.
It's a balancing act, then.
It is not just a balancing act. It is about determination to see through the hard work, even as you're having a lot of folks expressing their impatience with us getting to the goal line.
Dow, what's the most challenging decision you made as King County Executive so far? Pick one or two.
Boy, oh boy. The first day I came into office, I was briefed about the fact that I had been left with some tunnel boring machines that were stuck hundreds of feet underground as we were building the Brightwater sewage plant, and I had to decide whether to terminate the agreements with that contractor and take the risk that another contractor coming from a different direction with different technology was going to be able to complete that. It was a very, very high stakes decision just in the first few weeks. I had to decide to shut down the South Park Bridge because of safety and cut off that neighborhood from access to jobs and commerce, and I managed to cobble together a coalition that was able to rebuild and reopen that bridge. Those were things that happened just in the first little while of my time in office, but it's part and parcel of the gig. Some days are mundane, some days you have high stakes decisions to make, And you just have to remember what your values are, that you're here to do your best for the people of the county, that you're not always going to do so perfectly, but that as long as you stay true to the commitment you made to uphold the Charter and the Constitution, and don't worry so much about what it's going to look like politically, you can get to the finish line. And honestly, when I think about our struggles to overcome hundreds of years of bias that evidence themselves in the justice system, I think about that. Just keep plugging away. We can get there. But you can't get knocked off track by either pressure or the lure of making a big superficial splash in the media.
Dow, it's really interesting. A couple of your toughest, challenging decisions you made were very early in your administration, which I wasn't expecting to answer.
Well, believe me, I could go through and inventory several from each year, but those stick out because they're early. And their earlier experiences tend to be prominent in your memory.
I'll get you back one day. I'd love to talk to you more about this. Well, Dow, again, we're going to move to sports in a minute. This is Paul Schneiderman of Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio with our King County Executive, Dow Constantine. All right, Dow, here's a question for you. A couple of your predecessors became governor. Another one of your predecessors, Ron Sims, worked in the Obama administration. I know you love your job as King County Executive. If you could pick either being a governor from Washington State or being a U.S. Senator from Washington State, which one would you pick?
If that's my choice between those two,
Yeah.
I would choose to be the governor. I think I've established that I can run a large organization with a lot of employees and a large jurisdiction. King County is larger than I think 15 of the states in the United States, but not unimportantly as well, I'm the father of a 4-year-old.
Right.
And I hate the thought of taking that poor girl all the way across the country to Washington, D.C. to spend her childhood. So I would much rather stay here at home. And there are a lot of opportunities to contribute to our community here at home. You mentioned Ron at HUD, but people are able to contribute in myriad ways from based on the experience you gather as county executive. And I'm just looking forward to whatever the next chapter is being something that I can look back on with satisfaction that I made a difference for my community.
If you declare for governor, you'll tell me first, right?
This would be the most likely place for such an announcement to happen.
Yes,
yes.
having fun. Dow, moving on to sports now. I remember back.
We have time left for sports?
We do. We got damn it, 10, 12 minutes left maybe? Okay. Dow, 2012, remember it well. There was a press conference with you and then Seattle Mayor McGinn. And there was a
5 mayors ago. Yes.
Yeah, right. There was a county-city collaboration in favor of the Chris Hansen Soda Arena plan, which right now is either falling apart or it's on life support. Did you ever see that happening, Dow? Did you see the whole thing collapsing over a street vacation vote? Did you ever see it happening?
It's been a very strange succession of events. I mean, Chris Hansen came here back to his hometown, wanting to build an arena with a very sincere desire to bring the Sonics back, a very sort of almost like childlike desire to see his team back in town. It got caught up in a whole bunch of politics, much of which was just red herrings being thrown out there.
Right.
And ultimately, the city council decided to go in another direction with Key Arena. Well, they had a white elephant in Key Arena. Obviously, it was once and could again be a great venue for NBA basketball. Actually paid for part of school, tending bar at the old Jake O'Shaughnessy's across from there. So, but the fact is that I think an arena in the stadium district was not an outlandish or irrational idea down in Soto, and that's why I supported it. I think that.
Are you behind the Key Arena plan now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I definitely want the Sonics to come back. That's priority number one. So if that's the path to bring back the Sonics, then I am 100% for it.
This is a hypothetical question. Could the county ever get behind a second major indoor arena plan?
Well, it depends on whether it makes financial sense, right?
Gotcha.
Would you do a separate arena for hockey? I don't think that, these guys are going to bring hockeys to Key Arena. So I think that it would be more likely that someone would build a venue for other kinds of entertainments that aren't accommodated right now. I mean, the getting off the sports track, but there is a real need, based on what I hear from the promotion community, for like a 6,000 seat ish indoor arena in the city of Seattle for concerts. And you have real big venues and you have real small venues, but you don't have that kind of in-between size ones. So there are lots of opportunities, and frankly, I'm grateful to Chris Hansen for getting the campaign started, for helping us understand that was really within our power to bring the Sonics back, and helping channel all of our sort of outrage over what happened to us here in our community.
No, you've been a big
you and I
fan.
both grew up with Sonics.
Absolutely.
I will never get over that, but I'm really looking forward to tip off whatever building it happens
Absolutely. Well, we have the Showwear Center, but that's interesting what you brought up, that maybe there's a case for another 6,000 or 7,000 seat arena somewhere in
in. I mean,
King County.
you hear that a lot from people who book rock shows and stuff.
Yeah, right. Safeco Field is owned by the Washington State Major League Baseball Stadium Public Facilities District, PFD. They recently approved a 25-year lease with the Mariners. I got kind of a conceptual question, kind of two lawyers talking here for a second. Does the county, though, have the final say on the funding aspects of Safeco?
The county can say whether county-controlled tax revenues will be available to the Public Facilities District for their deal. So they have a range. They reached a contract with the Mariners where they allocated rights and responsibilities, costs. Part of that really is dependent on county tourism dollars being available, which the state statute says should be available for tourism, including sports facilities. And so it is about 12% of the total hotel motel tax revenues over the course of a couple decades, and that is as compared to 100%, which it's been since 1967, going to sports facilities. So I think it's a reasonable deal to maintain a public building, not the bells and whistles, but the steel and the roof and the wiring and plumbing. And as a
beautiful stadium,
it's a great ballpark, and I think it is a good thing for us to take a different approach than many other jurisdictions have, where they're just treating these stadiums as disposable, and instead investing in it as though it's going to be an icon in our community for another century.
Paul Schneiderman of Sports and Stuff again on Rainier Avenue Radio with our King County executive, Dow Constantine. Dow, back to Safeco Field, and I know you're on record, I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but I believe you're on record for supporting an approximate $180 million maintenance tax, I guess we can call it, for Safeco Field. I think it would come from a part of the hotel motel tax. This has received some criticism from some people who are philosophically against almost any funding for stadiums and teams. What do you see happening down in the final negotiations, or could this amount be adjusted at all?
Well, of course, it can be adjusted because we have a separately elected legislative branch. I recommended what was negotiated by the Public Facilities District with Mariners because I think it's a reasonable amount. I think it represents what the landlord's obligation should be to keep the building in good shape, while the team takes on a lot of the maintenance as well as enhancements as their responsibility. The fact is that we went to the legislature and got them to authorize us to use the hotel motel tax, again, paid by visitors to our region, 37.5% for housing, 37.5% for arts, heritage, and culture, and then they reserved 25% for the the golden egg, tourism, including sports facilities. You'll remember the hotel motel tax came into existence in 1967 to help pay to create the stadium that brought us the Mariners and the Seahawks, and then it paid for Safeco Field, and now it's paying off CenturyLink Field. And so, Safeco Field is by most measures the second largest tourist attraction in our county.
It is a public facility too,
and it is a publicly owned facility. So it is a reasonable thing, and the question is that the correct amount? By the way, the $180 million is inflated dollars. So it is a number that you need to look at in the context of what a dollar is going to be worth 20 years from now, as well as how many more tourists are going to be coming here, paying so much more money into that hotel motel tax fund.
Long-term investment. Dow, back in the 90s, think like the movie Back to the Future. If somebody said in 2008 the Sonics would be gone and we would not have a team in 2018, they think the person was nuts that would say that. I know that the CenturyLink field is governed, I believe, by the Washington State Public Stadium Authority. Does everything look okay, you think, for the Sounders and Seahawks futures?
I mean, right now, yes. We're still paying it off, and they have, I think, good finances. Obviously, we all want the Sounders to win a few more, and we're all, we all have our fingers crossed that the Seahawks are not going to go through a rebuilding, but merely a transition with all these personnel changes. But it is a great stadium. I think we should be grateful to Mr. Allen, and which they all at Vulcan call him Mr. Allen, and everybody who put that deal together. I was in the state Senate when I voted in favor of public funding for that. And, we're going to have to make sure that we are maintaining both these facilities in excellent condition so that we don't have the phenomenon they have in other cities where they tear it down and build something miles and miles away. That we have this at the foot of downtown for generations to come.
And you feel good about the Mariners' future at Safeco Field?
I feel great about it. The ownership is very committed to keeping them here. They are interested in this being a multi-decade, multi-generational arrangement. There's no more that sort of, brinksmanship that went on in virtually every other lease deal over the years, and that is good.
Good news.
That is the way we should be conducting ourselves.
I think sports fans will be happy to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, when the PFD and the Mariners hired an outside consultant to figure out how much maintenance should be done, how much it should cost, and then they figured out what a fair allocation of those costs was. That is the fair, rational way, unsatisfying perhaps to people who object to spending any money on these entertainments, but
overall equitable.
Yeah, you might not be a sports fan, but you might be a fan of the arts. And we spend money on the arts and arts facilities. Or you might not care about either of those, but you might care about parks. Well, we do that too. Not everyone is going to like every single one of these things, but all of them taken together create a much richer quality of life.
Dow, I know you were at that press conference recently for the 2026 World Cup proposal.
Oh, it's very exciting.
I believe 23 North American cities vying for 16 spots for 80 matches for the 2026 World Cup. I kind of have two questions with this issue. One, do you feel comfortable that Seattle-King County will be a solid host? And tie the transportation issue into that a little bit. I think a lot's going to happen in 8 years in transportation.
I do think we're a solid host. First of all, CenturyLink Field is a great world-class facility, and you don't have to dig very deep to find some remarkable footage of a packed house seeing a soccer match there. But beyond that, over the last couple of decades, we've begun to build the kind of infrastructure that a genuinely world-class region needs. That viaduct's coming down. We're going to have a great waterfront. We're building a massive expansion to the convention center so we can actually host conventions that are commensurate with the size of our region. And we're building a high-capacity transit system that's going to link together the full 3-county metropolitan region. And that is critical if you're going to host a big event like this. People need to be able to stay not just at a downtown Seattle hotel, but at places throughout the region. People need to be able to reach practice facilities throughout the region. We're going to be able to do that. And we've had aspirations in the past. We went way out on a limb and hosted a World's Fair when we were kind of a backwater, and it helped jumpstart modern Seattle.
62, unbelievable.
1960, I was there. In a stroller, but I was there. We had a flirtation with trying to bring the Olympics here, but we weren't really ready. We're now getting a little bit more grown up. We're stepping onto the world stage.
Did you get behind Olympics bid, by the way, Dow?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good idea.
And
we had the Goodwill Games, which was a great thing.
1990, remember it well. Yeah.
But this light rail system is the kind of infrastructure that a region like us needs, not just to host the world, but for every person here to be able to access the opportunity that's provided here on a day-to-day basis. You can't have to spend your life stuck in traffic or limited to a small geographic area because it's impossible to move around. This will open up education and employment and other opportunities for everyone.
So 8 years from now, 2026, assuming best case scenario, we get a World Cup, we're a World Cup host city, you feel that transportation will be enhanced and getting people around will be a lot easier.
Yeah, we're going to be, by then we will have opened light rail to Roosevelt and to Northgate, to Bellevue and to Redmond. And we are pushing out north, south, and east, and a little after that, west as well to Ballard and West Seattle. It is going to, we talk about the housing shortage here, we talk about the difficulty getting around. This dramatically increases the footprint, the territory that's accessible to every person for jobs, for housing, for recreation, for everything that you need and want. And it is going to really transform this region. It's an exciting moment. And, when you talk about going into politics and kind of sidetracking your legal career, being able to look back on something like that, where I brought all the relationships and the experience I had to bringing that whole thing to the ballot and getting it passed in 2016, that'll make a lot of this worth it, right?
And I think one thing, Dow, is if one's a sports fan, it's kind of hard to be anti-public transportation and pro sports.
I mean, are you seeing how many fans use the rail now? I mean, I remember the first Husky game. I took my dad down to the Soto station on Lander, and we hopped the train with all these excited Husky fans and rode out to Husky Stadium. And you get out and you just walk, 100 feet, and you're in Husky Stadium. It is completely transformed the experience. You don't have any of that traffic headache anymore. And that is true for Mariners fans and Seahawks fans and Sounders fans, and it's going to be true for Sonics fans as well in time.
One day. Paul Schneiderman of Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio with King County Executive Dow Constantine. Real quickly, Dow, the Special Olympics went pretty well, didn't it?
Oh, so great. I don't know if you made it to the opening ceremony.
I didn't, unfortunately.
It was just so emotional and again, a great moment for our region as well as for all the participants and their families. Special Olympics is a remarkable movement, and that we were able to host it and host it so successfully, I think is another real sort of feather in our cap. I think that this shows that we can gracefully play host to big events and not have it tie the entire region in knots, but instead show what's best about us.
It was a good preview for a prospective 2026 World Cup
or an All-Star game.
All-Star game, right. Yeah. Major political party convention, maybe?
Major.
Yeah. Could you get behind that? Is that
we would love to have one, but only one of the two major political parties have their convention here.
Which would that be, Dow?
That would be the Democratic Party. I'm not sure how much help it would be to the Democrats to be in Seattle, where Donald Trump got 8% of the vote, but,
You'd be grinding your teeth. Republicans host their political party convention in Seattle, wouldn't you?
Well, it would give me something to do that week.
Right. Well, Dow, it's just been a lot of fun to have you on. And real quickly, what does the future hold for Dow Constantine?
Well, going to Atlanta for the opener against Auburn. I mean,
you're going to be there? You're going in September?
Yeah, of course I'm going. Good. I mean, that's the tough game on the schedule, right? That is the one where we're going to show what we're made of. And after that, we should be favored straight down the line. And by we, I'm talking about the University of Washington.
Yeah. I've seen Husky games there. Yeah. Got some fun stuff with the family cooking or anything else cooking?
Yeah, if I can get anybody in the family to go to a road game with me, then we're having fun stuff cooking. Otherwise, it's just, cleaning out the basement.
Well, Dow, it's been a lot of fun to have you on Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio. It'll be fun to have you back one day.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it, Dow. Thank you.